A very good morning to you. How are you doing? This is the second hour of the Situation Room this Tuesday morning. CT, today's proverb.
No elephant ever complained about the weight of their trunk.
No elephant ever complained about the weight of their trunk.
Well, at least if they complained, they didn't complain to human beings. So the human beings have no clue. Anyway, perhaps when they have elephant talk, they say, man, this trunk of mine is really weighing me down.
Maybe that's what they're doing when they're trumpeting. They're just like, ah.
Oh, please do that again for our listening pleasure. I mean, my goodness.
Just tired of this thing. When will this go? When is this gonna end?
It explains because that trumpeting is often followed by a heavy stomp of that foot.
Yes.
And boop, it's like exasperation.
Lifting the trunk and
God
just wondering, no, what is this?
Couldn't we have got a smaller trunk?
Or just like a mouth and nose like everybody else.
Yes.
That's fake news, though.
Absolutely fake news. Certified fake news.
Certified fake news. Remember, we've been having conversations about fake news, how to tell fake news, not how to spread fake news, how to actually identify fake news, how to know where fake news is coming from, how to avoid fake news. And we continue that conversation this morning. Joining us is Carole Kimutai. She's the managing editor for digital products at Standard Group PLC. Carole, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Yes.
This early in the morning.
Very early.
Well, we see her early in the morning, but not here.
Virtually.
Virtually.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work that you do on the digital side at Standard. I think before even going into the fake news and all, just tell us about the very many products and platforms that Standard Group uses on digital to disseminate information.
Yes, we have a lot of products. And as you know, because of the digital transformation, we are now a digital-first newsroom. So we have websites. We have about 4 websites. The main one being the standardmedia.co.ke, which is the #1 news site in East Africa. Then we have the Nairobian, we have the Farmers platform, and then we have the TV platforms, including Spice FM. Apart from that, we do social media, and all our brands have a social media handle. So you're talking about Facebook, you're talking about Twitter, you're talking about Instagram, and some brands have TikTok. And then we go into Telegram, we go into WhatsApp, community management, we go into a bit of Viber. So we are almost everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
When you say almost, what is left out?
We have, we have Snapchat. So there are other types of social media that we have not really gone into. Yeah, so because social media has different types of users and audiences. So when we say we are in TikTok, there are brands that render well to the crowd on TikTok. Yeah, so that's where I'm coming from.
Are there others that don't render well at all with what it is that we do?
From a strategic position, yes. You see a news product like KTN News. What target audience do we look for? TikTok is a much younger audience. How are you going to render a political show on TikTok for that audience? Is that our key audience that we want? So those are more of strategic approaches to that.
Okay.
The Situation Room is on Marasmus.
Erasmus is...
It's it's a social media platform.
Okay.
that exists
Otherwise
in
known as
cities,
Instagram.
Otherwise known as Instagram.
Yes.
Okay.
So obviously, because of the presence of Standard Group on all these platforms, then the people will follow the platforms. People will follow the Standard Group on the platforms, but also at the same time, they are following others for
Correct.
sources of information. And that's where now fake news also thrives in all these platforms. All right. So from a strategic standpoint, just you can take the listener through how we as a media organization ensure that all the information that we're sharing on all these platforms is actually not likely to be fake news. It's going to be verifiable news. The process of news collection and vetting and then even uploading or broadcasting.
Right. So what happens? We get information. So information can be from the source, can be from an event. So our reporters at an event, can be from an organization. So the organization can choose to share the information on Twitter, right? Or on a press conference, or just share a report, as we see sometimes even the judiciary just shares a report, or the energy regulatory guys when they do the
monthly reviews.
Yes, they don't do press conferences. So we get that information. We take it through a process, a quality check process. Either we will call the source. If it's an organization, we will verify. And if it's an account, the accounts that are known to be owned by organizations. So there's the judiciary, there is the IG, police, and State House, and they are verified accounts. We know their accounts and their elements of true accounts because they're also parody accounts.
Yep.
So you find that if you're not careful first and you don't know which account that is the first risk area. So when the information comes, we verify it, we confirm it, and then we share it. Now, those accounts themselves, and maybe later we'll discuss, these same people who are in authority sometimes give us inaccurate information. So there's fake news, there is misinformation, there's disinformation. So you find that somebody, for example, the one I can remember recently was by the CES of Health. She claimed, that Kenya was 7th in vaccination.
Yep.
So in the world.
Seventh in what terms?
Yes. So it was not complete.
Yes.
Yes. So when you fact check, is it per the number of vaccinations compared to the population? Is it the number of vaccinations given to the country? So,
or is it number 7 in the number of people who are lagging behind in vaccinating
Yes.
their people?
Or is it the speed of vaccinating since the moment the vaccines arrived?
yeah. So, so I mean, you have to reconfirm that claim. So, and normally, journalistically, we call you and ask you the context because sometimes the context might be wrong. Maybe she was saying it and she never completed what she really meant it to be.
Yep.
But a few fact checkers have fact checked and confirmed it is largely not true. She has not yet come, or the ministry has not yet come out to explain where the 7 in the world came from.
So, Carole, what would be the responsibility then from media if you do find out? Fact checkers have come out and they've said, largely this would not be true. And this news or information went out on various platforms and people did ask questions. Just this one example. So what would be the responsibility of media then? Even now, she has not come out to either refute or confirm. So what would be the responsibility of those platforms that had put out this information coming from her initially? So
yes, media houses reported. But normally what should happen is we need to fact check every claim, even when the president claims we've done X kilometers of road and everything. And you saw that in the US, where certain media houses fact checked Trump on every comma and full step and phrase he said. So ideally, that's where we should get, because we see a lot of claims by people in authority. And now that we're going 2022, it is important that we also start asking those questions. If Eric Latif, for example, wants to be governor of Nairobi and he claims that he has done ABCD in his previous life.
I've uplifted the youth, 3,000 youth out of poverty. 2,500 of them are women and young girls. And, we've given them positions of employment. Now they are earning from zero. They're earning 10,000 shillings every month.
Okay.
And if I get into office of governor, you can imagine what we can do.
Yeah. And you say I was working for this company. So we need to go back and actually
and speak with
what
authority.
He means by uplifting. Because uplifting could be he gave them 1 month's rent and he feels
uplifting
that
could be bus fare.
It could be yes.
Actually, it could even be something perhaps a little more tangible. He imagined it.
Yes. Unfortunately, you can't fact check the future. So that's very critical. That people make all sorts of claims and post them, and then other people pick them and distribute them on you retweet and you share them on WhatsApp with the alleged phrase as received, and now fortunately WhatsApp shows that you have just forwarded, which I think is a good step, that we know that it's a disclaimer that this information is not you're not the source of this information.
So you're not the origin.
So information is coming to the news desk, for example.
Yeah.
Breaking news. Sometimes we see you have a one-liner, as in just your header, because
Kaunda is dead.
Exactly. And you want to be as we know, is the practice. You want to be the first to break this story. So you have your lead headline. So, and everybody else is doing this at the same time. We're talking about seconds. How much time do you have to fact check, or should you ever be in a situation whereby you deliver the news and then check later, or wait and make sure? In this game of news.
Yes, in this game of news and being a media house, especially I've said, like, the Standard brand is number one news website. Now, when you've spoken about death, we have a rule of thumb. There's no prize for breaking somebody has died. So whether you die at 7 o'clock or whatever time, you're dead. But if we say you've died and you've not died, the cost of accuracy and credibility is much higher than going to break it fast. So for us, credibility is number one. Because if we are purveyors of fake news and incorrect information, it affects the brand.
Sure.
And like you've correctly put it, in fact, the number one most spread fake news, especially in this country, is death. Starts as a rumor. We've seen police at Lee Funeral Home. I'm sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of activity.
There's a lot of
around
activity.
Lee Funeral.
Someone with 300 followers on Twitter. And somehow people with more followers sort of have some believability.
Yep.
People tend to if City has 2.5 million and he says, I've spotted something, we sort of start creating all these pictures.
2.5.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. So.
Or City just posts a name.
Yes. With the
Eric
dot.
Dot question mark.
Yes.
Bas.
And we start imagining how we saw you last. You had 59 gray hairs. You had lost 90 kilos.
He hasn't been on air for 2 weeks.
Yes.
No, I'm trying to calculate that if I lose 90 kilos, how many kilos will I have?
Yeah. You see, that's
now you're dead.
Yeah.
You see?
So those are some of the questions that we need to ask as even users on these platforms. Is it last week some lady was alleged to have 10 babies?
Yeah.
There are no pictures yet of
the
those
babies.
of the babies.
And no hospitals have said that they
no
delivered.
hospitals. It's in Pretoria. We don't know which hospital. We don't know which doctor. We don't know anything. But we have a name of the woman
And the man.
and the alleged man, because right now you can't know whether he's.
I like that story though.
Yeah, but it went viral.
We did.
It was
We talked
covered.
about
It was
yeah.
published everywhere.
Everywhere in the world.
Until the government comes and says, but
Where were these children?
no private or public hospital has recorded any sort of births like this.
Yes.
So in such instances, okay, now I think before we come into that, you were telling us about the most common fake news in the country. Number one is death. Last week there was the unfortunate one of our friend from IEBC CEO who had to come out and say, come on guys, here I am. I'm just at my farm in Kitale and I'm having a chill. What is it that drives people to share this kind of information?
Wow. Sometimes it could be propaganda. And there are certain wars that people tend to fight each other, political propaganda. So that's quite common. But there are also people whose work is to spread fake news. And they get a lot of mileage out of it. So if I say I'm seeing a lot of activity outside Lee Funeral and I only have 5,000 followers, trust me, by the end of the day, I'll probably get to 15 or 20.
Let me understand this. You're saying that there are people who are employed to do precisely that.
Correct. We saw that with Cambridge Analytica, that you are going to distort the truth for a certain objective.
They did a fairly good job of it, didn't they?
Yes,
For
yes.
which you make very good money.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
They did
Because
a
all you
fairly
need
good
to
job
do
of
is
it.
repeat misinformation so many times until it's the truth. The other example is, was it last year when we had a photo, and photos are very, very notorious, of Joe Biden allegedly kneeling down before a child. It was said that he was apologizing to the child of George Floyd. But when you search the photo, you find that the photo was actually taken before
George Floyd
George Floyd.
died.
But it was posted by a journalist in the US. Then a senator in Nigeria picked and retweeted, picked it and changed.
Senator from?
Nigeria.
Nigeria.
Yes.
Picked it and did what?
And changed the phrase and claimed. So it was picked and went viral.
So the
and
initial journalist was not making this claim that Biden
No.
was kneeling.
No,
Because of-
Yes. She just explained what was happening, and somehow somebody picked the photo
And added
and
some
added
other
their
context.
own context. And of course, it grew legs, as we say, from Twitter. Once it gets to WhatsApp, it becomes really difficult because you have to take the image back onto the internet and run certain types of checks to confirm the original source, to confirm even where the photo was taken, because it's actually possible to confirm where exactly a photo was taken.
Yes, but then, as they say, the damage will have been done.
Unfortunately.
Because there are people who, no matter what you do, no matter what you retract, they will believe the fake news. Because they prefer to believe the fake news. It meets a certain minimum standard that they have, and it appeals to them. We were discussing some of these things earlier on in the week. It is earlier in the week, isn't it? It was earlier last week.
Last week.
And one of the things that we were saying was a lot of these things lend themselves, should we say they land on fertile ground? We're already inclined towards certain myths. So if something sort of like meets that quotient for myths that we have, then the acceptability factor is really great. And to dissuade us from that becomes extremely difficult.
Correct. And that's why, as a media house, I was saying, we cannot get it wrong. Because they say fake news what travels faster than the truth.
It's fake news.
So you have to come back and correct, and most likely the correction will not go as fast and wide as the initial news. So that's the danger. Yeah.
And the correction doesn't erase the damage.
Not
No,
necessarily.
not-
You can come
not-
out and say
I
the
mean-
damage has been done.
Yes, and you see, like social media platforms like Facebook particularly are very strict with publishers. We publish a fake news, we are flagged. There are certain repercussions for that action. Number one, you have to retract. Number two, our ranking comes down. So it's very, very expensive to publish incorrect information, commonly known as fake news.
And how does this ranking actually help us?
In terms of reach, so if our page has, say, 5 million, Standard Digital has 5 million followers. If we are known to publish fake news, our reach reduces. So if we are reaching 10 million from the page, we are reduced to around 6, 5, and it's very costly for us as a brand.
Yep.
So we have to be very, very, very careful.
But-
But also, I mean, the cost of our credibility is much
It's
higher.
big. Yeah, it's much higher than
Yes,
that.
because there are certain sites in this country where I've read that there, but I come to Standard Digital to confirm.
So,
Especially deaths, even us in media. If this media house hasn't confirmed, it's not the truth yet.
Yep.
sure. But you know how we say, I read it in the newspaper, so it must be true, kind of thing.
Yes.
So then what are some of the areas whereby that this is something that must be checked? What are some of the most frequent fake news topics that you've come across?
So I mentioned death, death, and it's pretty easy to confirm. Call a relative, which is normally a very difficult thing to ask a city here, as your dad died. You know, it's it's it is a very uncomfortable phone call, but it has to be done. And most of the time, families actually come out. Like Chiloba came out and said, you know, I'm alive, I'm well, and so on and so forth. Others just keep quiet. Phones are switched off.
I can think of
And they're angry.
I can think of something far more difficult than asking somebody if their father has died. News that your wife beats you, calling the man to confirm. We're just calling to confirm if your wife actually beats
Are you in the hospital?
How are you feeling?
And you know, you also can't call doctors.
Yeah.
Or if you call, the doctors will not.
They will not give you that
They'll say,
information.
no, this is true, but wait for the family to confirm.
There's the issue of confidentiality with the patient.
Yes.
So you can't really call somebody and ask them, so we understand you're in hospital. Yes, I'm in hospital. No.
Pole sana.
Yes.
Maumivu iko namna gani? Okay? Inauma sehemu gani?
Yeah, that is a very awkward conversation. So there is death, and there is what we call, let's call it like photos, Photoshop, distorted, even front pages of newspapers.
Yep.
So you find a newspaper front page, headline has been distorted, city heir to Chris Kirubi's
Billions.
estate.
You're becoming a more and more dodgy character as this
Yes.
conversation goes on.
Let me tell you, these things that people say on air, you have no idea how far-reaching they are. There was a caller who once, I've told you people this story, called here and said, you people in the media who earn 2 million shillings, do you know how many phone calls I got in the course of that very day? Because somebody called and said, we are paid 2 million shillings.
So people were calling for what?
No, they just finding
now
out
became a circle.
They were just
Finding
finding
out
out
how
how I'm doing, just reminding me how close related we are, you know, and so on and so on. And in my neck of the woods, if it's my cousin, he does not refer to his wife as his wife. He says, my wife. His child is not referred to as his child. It is my son or my daughter.
Okay.
And I'm thoroughly confused. I'm wondering, what is this person talking about? Then the request comes 2 minutes into the conversation. So these things that people say and people hear, they have very far-reaching consequences.
So you've basically suffered the brunt of fake news.
What do you mean? I still suffer.
But you earn 2 million.
Am I going to tell you?
Yeah,
See, now, if you don't correct
if
the
you don't correct
position-
it,
Speculation, you don't. There's a void. You don't fill
I
it.
have just corrected it. You know why?
how can you?
If I say I don't earn 2 million, they'll say he's pretending he earns 3. So it is better to just keep quiet and not mention any figure and just say, well, people are allowed to imagine what they will. What they?
So then, for a platform, is it better to keep quiet, so still come back and then refute or confirm? Is it better in this case what we're talking about now? Because if we're saying the damage has already been done, regardless of what you say, as a brand like this, or you know, a newspaper, media house, is it the right thing to actually come out and correct the misinformation?
Yes, it's highly encouraged you come out. So if we are fact checking, how much does City earn? The first thing we'll do is call you. Confirm or
Deny.
the 2 million. Then at that point you say, no, I don't. I actually earn more.
Yeah.
Or I earn less.
Or will not talk to the media.
I am thinking, even as you ask the question, I'm thinking, fat chance. You call me to ask me how much I'm earning, and you actually imagine I'm going to tell you.
Confirm or deny whether you earn 2 million. Now, whether you earn less or more, that's, you can say, no, I actually earn less
I
than
am
that.
actually going to go into the process of telling you to get lost in the politest way possible.
All right.
Yes.
So your source has said, get lost. Next.
So what we will do is we will
Call Carrie.
call other, which is an option. Yeah,
Hey.
just check in terms of how much do radio personalities in general earn. Then provide a range that in Kenya, these are the, and talk to several HR people and say this is the range. So it might not be 2 million, but this is the range that morning show hosts.
Which may still fall within that 2 million.
Yeah, which may still
Give or take.
yeah, so it is largely true. It is largely true. We very fact checked.
The most common fake news stories in Kenya, what are they? What have you come across? You can actually also share with us. Spice FM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, or on Instagram. We're having a conversation with the managing editor for digital product at Standard Group, and this is Carole Kimutai, looking at fake news, the purveyors of fake news, and how to avoid fake news.
Right. So, Carole, there's this, an example now of what's still buzzing, the death of mogul Chris Kirubi. And then after his death, there's this story that has been reported in today's Standard. Kirubi's ties with the notorious tax haven raises eyebrows. Okay? The headline alone is going to elicit raised eyebrows. And you're going to think, hold on a minute. Was he not paying taxes? Was he stashing cash somewhere so that he didn't have to, bear the burden of paying these taxes? The questions arise from the headline alone. Now, when you read a headline like this, must you begin to interrogate it before reading the rest of the story? Or do you see headlines that are intended to do just that, draw you in to read the rest? Is that the purveyance of fake news, for example, right there?
The explanation is in the story. So I recommend you read the story first. The context of that headline is there. Explained about his investments in Mauritius, Centum CEO, and so on and so forth. So the report has quoted certain sources. So it is recommended that people read the story. But whatever you've said is correct. That especially online, that story is in the newspaper. It will be on the internet, especially online. Certain headlines known as clickbait have elements of fake news, and it's a tactic that is used a lot, right? And is highly discouraged. And that's why you see media houses such as ourselves, we tend to give the whole story on the headline. So that you come into the story, you read the story, and you get your facts. But we've seen where purveyors of fake news have gotten so good at it. 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago, we saw a video by a media house in this country that had found a couple who were in a compromising situation, and this husband came and said, my wife claimed she went out in the morning, she went to the market, but she went to so-and-so's house. And I have been using XY person to track her footsteps. And so today they've been found. It was on TV. Whatever was on TV was cut and was shared on social. So that story has gone viral. It's a witchcraft story. It is all a staged.
Right.
It's all staged. But if you look at it keenly, the first time you look at it and you'll get surprised and you'll forward it. Because one of the characteristics of fake news, it evokes emotion, either joy or anger or disbelief. The first thing you do is to forward it. And now that we have groups of families and friends and professional colleagues.
And funerals.
And that's why it shows forwarded too many times. Then in fact, that should actually trigger that there's something with this piece of information. So there's that type of fake news that people fall for. And then there's the deep fakes, where, you find that somebody is imitating Barack Obama or Uhuru Kenyatta. That's very dangerous. Claiming that, today we have locked Nairobi County and his mouth. That's distortion, that's fake news. That's very, very dangerous, because that can pass as truth.
So it looks authentic.
If
you look at this, you're looking at a video, and this is basically Uhuru Kenyatta, the president.
Correct.
And the mouth is moving. The syncing of the lip with the words that are being said is completely the same. It matches. But the president never said anything like that. It's somebody else who has actually done some editing to make it fit. How do you now identify deepfakes?
Now, that's a very, very difficult thing to do. It needs you to have clarity of mind and follow certain steps. Now, the thing you need to know as a fact checker, we say trust everything but verify. Even if you tell me you're a reclative, give me your ID. That's a rule of thumb. So where did the president speak? So you go to his State House handle. There's nothing like that. You call his handlers. There's nothing like that. Because they normally would post that information.
Yep.
But we've also seen an instance where State House has gotten information wrong.
Yep.
Recently was a death of a former State House comptroller. It could happen. So you can find that a certain credible source shares information. Then you also have to reconfirm.
Or sometimes what State House has shared is basically not the entire speech of the president's. So if you look at their handle, you may find that A, they are late to post, update what the president's itinerary has been today, or B, they have shared some bits of what the president said, but they have not said this. So if you look at that video, he is dressed the same way as today's photos and videos of where he has been. The background is exactly where he was today. So you can do that and find, well, yeah, this is the president speaking today at such and such a place.
Yes.
And I'm seeing a clip here of the president saying, I can clearly understand that State House is not sharing clips, it's sharing photos and, writing the stories of what the president may have had said, highlights, but they could have missed this one out.
Yes, that's why you need to call his handlers.
Ask them directly. Did the president say this?
Yes, but like you've rightly put, that's a very, very difficult thing. Because instinctively you think if it's on his handle, his shirt is like this, it could be true.
Yep.
So very dangerous, and sometimes media falls into such kinds of awkward situation where you have to come back and correct again and start explaining. And for us, we have a section called a fact check, and we even do corrections. I'm sure you've seen in newspapers doing corrections because it can be really embarrassing. So in terms of quality checks, we say don't be too fast or excited, especially when news excites you. Be very, very careful, extremely careful. Like the news of the 10 babies. 10 babies with her picture with a big tummy. It looked very true.
And quoting the world record person in South Africa and saying, yes, it's verified.
Verified. I was even reading the BBC report. BBC quoted, and I'll read for you that story. It said one South Africa official confirmed the births. One South African official to the BBC. However, mother said they were yet to see the babies. A family member who didn't want to be identified told the BBC that mother had 10 babies, 5 via natural birth and 5 via cesarean section. No one is being quoted. No hospital named, no pictures of the newborns, no doctor quoted. It's in Pretoria. Which hospital is that?
It's the excitement of going with the news.
Not even that. It's a maternity wing. I am sure there would be another mother.
And it's a public one.
Who would have taken the picture?
Witnesses.
There would be. But at the point now where this particular story is being carried in local newspapers, it's being carried on regional websites, global papers, it's everywhere. It's being consumed by the globe at that point. Now, everybody has consumed this information. Later on, it comes out that there's a possibility that this thing is just not true because it's not verified. What do you do? Everybody has consumed it. So does everybody come back and say, actually, you know what? And I'm still going to that because, so then it's like, the question then is asked, where does your credibility lie? If you've also carried a story, regardless of that, you've gotten it from an international feed, for example, you've put it in the paper. The questions of credibility then also come up because how then did you carry a story that had not been verified? How do you deal with that?
Correct, yes. So if that happens, you have to go to the original story and correct. We've since learned that so far, there are no witnesses. There are no pictures. We are still verifying. Because we are in Kenya, so check or work with people in South Africa to find out or keep updated because the media has quoted extensively media in Pretoria, but no specific
media
house.
outlet.
Media houses,
Yeah,
right.
so I mean, it's a lesson for all of us that when something sounds unbelievable, highly
probably
likely,
is.
It is unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
There's the other thing, and you even mentioned it early in the conversation, parody accounts. So, for instance, the Standard Media's Twitter handle is at Standard Kenya. All right. Somebody goes and creates such an account, but then they just add maybe an underscore, Standard Kenya underscore, somewhere, or Standard Paper. But everything else looks like the Standard. The images, the profile pictures, all of them just look like the Standard. And they even go ahead and create like a photoshopped thing there with a tick that shows it's a verified account, and they start sharing information. Now, as a consumer of the information, I know I follow Standard, and I don't always look at, so this is just, it's written the Standard Digital, and that's enough. I don't go and check, does the handle have all the elements of the Standard Digital handle? How do you avoid falling prey to such? Because there are many such parody accounts that, for individuals, for personalities, you'll find a parody account that just has the name of a certain personality, and they're sharing information, and people look at it and they're like, oh, this is what this person is saying.
Yeah, number one, most of those accounts come in form of screenshots. Be very wary of screenshots. At least a link can make you think it's true. But if you see something on a screenshot, always go back to the account, and you probably will find that it's a parody account. So if you go back and indeed you find that the account was set up 2 days ago.
It has one follower.
It has one follower. It has no tweets. I mean, it has 10 tweets. That gives you eyebrows.
Yeah.
And of course, Twitter doesn't just give people verifications, especially of an account that's 2 days old.
Yeah.
I mean, that's impossible. So just going back to check is very important. And of course, as journalists, that's something that is second to nature. We have to go back and check. And now start looking at some of the things that could confirm it's a fake parody account. But if it's a screenshot, I mean, highly likely, because you can easily, I mean, there are tools to create parody accounts, your picture, your blue tick, or even change the day you joined Twitter and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of this fake news came with the advent of social media. A lot of it, I mean, but we did see the proliferation of fake news. Now that we can, at this point, we can go back in history and say, hold on a minute, this is not a new practice. It's something that was done, propaganda, even during World War II and things like that.
Yeah.
It happened. So then there also lies the possibility that before it became a current thing, that it's possible that media that is practicing today previously carried fake news. Is that something then that needs to go back and historically be verified, or say, now that we are in this trend, whatever was reported before, or whatever was carried before, we can't do anything about it. We can only deal with the present and going into the future?
Right now we have people who are fact checkers.
Even of history?
Even of history.
Okay.
We find that people are going back to fact check. We have media houses with fact checking sections. In the office here, we have our checkpoint. We go back and fact check and start correcting some of these claims. We call them claims until they are verified. Now, I did an interesting fact check a couple of years ago. There was a certain law in Kenya that if you lived with somebody for more than 6 months, your husband and wife.
Yes, I remember that very clearly.
It was repeated. And how I picked it is because a comedian kept repeating it. And comedians in this country have huge followings and believability. So I had to go back into the law and the context and who said it and find out, is it 6 months of living together? What does the Marriage Act say? Actually say. Before, and I think there's a 2017 or something like that amendment. So going into that and confirming in what context there's common law and the judge and reading some of the cases passed, and you find that it was partly true. And when you're doing the fact check, you actually explain that. We fact check claims. So if you say, you have a question in your eyes, you'll ask. If you say, Jomo Kenyatta signed this and this and the other, you have to go actually to the Hansard, confirm any documents at the archives, newspaper clips at that time of that year, what happened. The person is dead, so you can't call him and confirm, but you can either confirm it's largely true, partly true, largely false. And there are also claims that are false or true. So the what can I call it? The measure, depending on the context, can be largely true, largely false, and we have as fact checkers we have that graph. If it's red.
So
it's
there's a
false.
truthometer.
Correct.
So, but why not just label if this information contains some falsehoods in it, and you can clearly see that this falsehood could have been deliberately inserted in order to change the entire story, why not just call the whole thing false? When you say largely true, then you're basically giving it a bit of credibility.
No, you see, we fact check what you say. If I say, sometimes even the context can be, what can I say? I can defame you as a liar. You're not the liar. What you said is incorrect. So I want to deal with what you said. Because I can
Not
say...
who you are.
Not who you are.
Yeah, so just
Because
say this
if
is
I
incorrect. Don't say this
Yes.
is largely correct. And then there's some bits of it that's just say it's incorrect.
But you see, there are parts maybe, like, for example, the vaccine. We could be 7th in terms of from the bottom of the list.
But 7 is true.
But 7 is true.
The position is not.
Yes.
Okay, I see.
You get it? Or by the time she was saying it, we were actually 7.
So what you're saying is you want people to distinguish between misinformation and disinformation.
Yes. And in like you've said, misinformation, I get information, I forward it. But fake news is I deliberately generate it.
Now
Yeah.
that's disinformation.
Yes. That I distort the headline, front page of the Standard or the Nation or the Star.
But disinformation works well because whatever you're being presented with is not entirely false.
Yes.
The believability factor is palpable.
Yes.
So because of just that little factor, the rest is easy to absorb. Now, as fact checkers, how do fact checkers get out of this maze? Because the question you saw in my eyes, I was asking, how do you tell when this misinformation is mired into a lot of truth? It's right in there.
And then one crucial element
Yes.
is untrue.
Just one.
Which is why I have an issue with calling it largely true. If you can clearly see that the one crucial element that changes the entire perspective of this story is not true, just call the story
The
not
whole
true.
thing is not true.
Yes.
Yeah, but you see, there are elements that are true.
Yes. But the sum total, the purpose of that little iota of mistruth
Yes.
is to do precisely that, misinform you.
Yes. And that's why we call it out and say, up to this point, we've confirmed the facts are true. But this little point here is not true.
Right. So then why don't we bring in intent? Because intent now
Yes.
is what gives the whole matter weight.
And if the intent was to misinform or to create, a buzz around something that was not true,
They have
then if
succeeded.
it's based on the intent, then the entire thing is fallacious.
How will you know the intent?
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yes,
If you're
exactly.
saying- but you're saying if from the point of misinformation, somebody is creating something, then it is to misinform or to create
To
some kind of
disinform.
entertainment around something that is not true.
So how do we tell the intent of CS Massimo Gangi?
Oh, that is not difficult.
Careful, CT.
No, it's not difficult at all. If I am a government functionary,
Yes.
all right, and I'm in a ministry, I have a very clear role. if I'm asked to make a public statement, there is no way I am going to make a statement that will incriminate not me, because people know I am the mouthpiece. There is no way. So the worst, I can either just speak the truth as I know it, or I can be deliberately vague about it. Because you're supposed to make a statement. Now, the person making the statement knows what the truth is. It's not that they don't know. They do know. But they have a job. And they are the ones who've been chosen to carry out the job. Because the other people, can you imagine by the time comes the CS, the backing order, the director said, I'm not saying this thing.
The CS said,
said, I'm not touching this thing. PS said, I'm not touching this thing.
PS said, I'm not saying.
You.
And there's an element of the 7th.
Yes.
Or 8th.
Yes.
There's a
Right?
somewhere.
But you deliberately leave out
Yes.
the detail of
Yes.
7th in what?
So it cannot be said that you actually lied. And it brings in the...
Yeah, it's true.
It can't
didn't
be
lie.
said.
Yeah,
it cannot be said that you lied.
Yeah.
Now,
You just withheld.
so the question is, when somebody withholds information, are they lying?
In a court of law, when they talk about omission, what are they saying?
Does it constitute, or does it bring about the legitimacy of a lie?
The person who is at a murder scene, for example, and saw the murder taking place is often called an accessory to murder, and also then can be tried before a court of law.
Yes.
So you left something out and you chose not to talk about it. You left something out. Is not right.
What would be difficult to prove is
Is
that
that
you actually
perjury?
knew it.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that perjury?
Yeah.
This conversation is interesting. Carole will
Very.
come back someday soon, right?
I have good intent,
For
by the way.
Carole
Right.
As a
Kimutai.
fact checker, good intent.
And that isn't fake news.
No.
Carole Kimutai is the managing editor for Digital at Standard Group PLC. Thank you for joining us. We've been having a conversation about the most common fake news stories in the country. These conversations will continue every week. We have these conversations. Thank you for tuning in. Keep it right here.